This is Eddie Hearn, Matchroom Boxing. You're watching Sporting Icons. You don't need to be anywhere else.
Okay, so for the past few days, maybe even a week now, I've been hearing the odd person saying how, have I heard that PBC and Fox Sports could be ending their contract prematurely and going their own separate ways? Have I heard about that? And outside of rumours, I haven't heard anything until today. Now finally have a source online where online reports are starting to pick up this story and run with it. Okay, so in the description box will be one of those. Now, is it true? We don't know. Because again, articles, they can claim that they have inside sources and all this kind of stuff, but do they really? Do they really? We don't know. Until something official right now is just a rumour. Is it a case of that the PBC are now the boxing version of the Titanic? Is it about to go down? Is it about to hit that iceberg? Which wouldn't surprise me in some ways, because some of the PBC fans, it seems that they seem to hate on anything that's not PBC related. So if it's DAZN, they hate it. If it's ESPN, they hate it. I don't quite understand any of that. But surely you're a boxing fan, right? Surely you want as much boxing as you can possibly get. Now, I can't get Fox Sports. I can't get Showtime. I can't get the US-based DAZN fights. I have to watch them through Sky Sports. And I don't have ESPN here in the UK. But I recognise the size of these platforms. I recognise the importance that they have for boxing. Okay, and with that said, I don't want to see that to be true. I don't want to see PBC and Fox Sports parting ways. I don't want to see it. I'm not one of these fans that fans for one specific platform and hates on everything else. You've never ever heard me say that. You've never heard me say, oh, I hope ESPN goes under, or I hope BT Sport goes under, or I hope Fox Sports go under. You've never heard me say that. Ever, ever, ever. As much as some people have this wrong delusion that I'm some kind of Matchroom only fanboy, that's not true at all. But anyway, I digress. Now, is this true? As I said, we don't know. We don't know. Time will tell. And I hope it's not true. But if it is true, let's have a look as to potentially why. Outside of the fact that, of course, all broadcasters, all platforms have been feeling the pinch due to the, almost a year now, pandemic. A lot of people have been feeling the pinch. And a lot of these PBC fanboys, by the way, were so excited, so happy when they thought that DAZN was about to go under. And nobody wanted this out. We told you that DAZN weren't going to work, yada, 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 because they were talking to other people about investment. Even though that's something that they were doing when they first announced that they were coming into boxing. They're always looking for investors. That's what you do in business. So there was never any danger. And I told people that when all this was happening. But no, they wouldn't have it. They wouldn't have it. PBC, Showtime, Fox is the best. Everyone else is trash. That's kind of the narrative they were going with. But either way, let's hope it's not true. But if it is true, let's look at potential reason as to why it is. Now, when you look around all the fights in the world that's either already been announced and we know that will be announced or whatever it may be, they don't seem to be involving PBC fighters. I'll give you an example. 2 fights this year, Joshua Fury, undisputed. Very, very important for the heavyweight division. Neither one of them PBC fighter. Dillian Whyte versus Alexander Povetkin. Revenge or repeat? Hopefully revenge, right? And of course, the winner will become in line to fight the winner of Joshua Fury. Very, very important for the heavyweight division. Much like with Alexander Usyk and Joe Joyce, which looks like it could be happening in April, at least according to Joe Joyce, where the winner, again, could be in line to fight the winner of Fury and Joshua. But before then, the winner of that fight, as much as it will be for the WBO interim world title, the winner of that fight will then get elevated to full WBO heavyweight world champion once the first Fury-Joshua fight happens. Very, very important for the heavyweight division. Other fights that's going on. Josh Taylor versus Jose Ramirez for undisputed. That's penciled in for May. Again, none of these guys are PBC fighters. Sal Canelo Alvarez versus Billy Joe Saunders. Looks like that will be happening in May, providing, of course, Canelo has no slip-ups, and it will take one hell of a slip-up to lose to Anthony Yildirim. Of course, that'll be happening very, very soon. Other fights that's going on, Roman Gonzalez versus Juan Francisco Estrada. Again, unification fight. For a lot of people, that's a huge fight. And again, like all fights, a lot of fights are subjective as to whether or not you see them as a big fight, an important fight or not. Okay, but I think a lot of people who are big boxing fans really want to see all of these fights that I've mentioned so far. Much like Joseph Parker versus Junior Farr. It may not be so big stateside and everything. It may not be so big here in the UK. But in New Zealand, it's their two best heavyweights going at it. It's a big fight. It is actually a big fight. Again, neither one of these are involved in PBC at all. And it's worrying when you look at the PBC, Fox Sports, and of course Showtime. They are kind of like the little sister at the minute, Showtime. Where again, Showtime, even before the pandemic, Stephen Espinosa was saying that they are struggling financially when it comes to boxing. They've been putting too much money into it, overpaying boxers. So they haven't been getting some of the fights that they'd like to. They've had to pass up on certain big fights because they couldn't afford to put them on. They couldn't afford to risk it. And it's quite worrying when you look at the PBC schedule right now, because there really isn't one. And the only kind of big fights that's really coming out that has any even kind of links to the PBC is Floyd Mayweather, a retired fighter who could be having an exhibition fight with this Logan Paul YouTuber. It's worrying when that's like the biggest fight that's involving any kind of PBC fighter. Floyd Mayweather, of course, has his connection with the PBC, is what I'm meaning by that. That's worrying. Very worrying. It's worrying when we're also talking about another PBC fighter in Manny Pacquiao taking on a DAZN fighter in Ryan Garcia. For some people, that's a huge fight. It's a very interesting fight. For me, not so much. Again, it's subjective as to what you think is a good fight or a decent fight as to what isn't. I'm not bothered about Manny Pacquiao versus Ryan Garcia. I'm really not. Again, I don't agree that Manny Pacquiao was stripped or should have been stripped by the WBA of his super welterweight world title and it just handed over to Ugas. We'll cover that bit in a second, but the point is, why is Pacquiao looking at Ryan Garcia rather than talking about defending his belt against maybe Ugas, Errol Spence Jr, Terence Crawford, and so forth? Maybe Mikey Garcia, I don't know. So from that perspective, I can understand why Manny Pacquiao was stripped. Because why are you talking about a Ryan Garcia fight rather than these other ones? But again, we understand why Pacquiao was stripped by the WBA, why Ugas has got that belt. Because Ugas versus Errol Spence Jr is a far less risky fight. It's an in-house fight. Errol Spence Jr is by far the favourite in this one. Not that Ugas is a bad fighter, not at all. But it's almost a way of putting another belt on the shoulder of Errol Spence Jr. And if he does slip up, oh well, it's an in-house fight. Ugas, he's with us, he's loyal to us, much like Errol Spence Jr is loyal to the PBC. He's like our little lapdog. Again, we know about this because he's talking about wrong side of the street and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, it says he's his own promoter and he's a free agent. So if you're a free agent, then there are no sides of the street, right? Anyway, it's what it is. But if Manny Pacquiao was to fight Errol Spence Jr. and Manny Pacquiao beats Errol Spence Jr., Manny Pacquiao, as much as he is a PBC fighter, he is a free agent. He will go elsewhere. He will fight on DAZN. He will fight in the Philippines. He will fight wherever. He doesn't have the loyalty to the PBC that an Errol Spence Jr. has, or even an Ugas has. So we know why this has happened. Of course we do. I think one fight that we may end up seeing will be a undisputed fight at 154. And hopefully it happens with somebody who's very, very, very impressive right now in Jermell Charlo. When he takes on, or hopefully takes on, Patrick Teixeira. Put that on for undisputed, and I think that fight will happen. But unfortunately for this fight, it's not the kind of fight that's going to do record number pay-per-views or be pay-per-view across the world or anything like that. It's a US domestic kind of fight. It's that kind of level. Even though it does have the tag of undisputed on it, which is unfortunate for me. And as I said before, I think, okay, Jermell, he did take a loss to Tony Harrison. Yes, again, he was losing to Tony Harrison in the rematch, but he pulled it out the bag. He puts on good fights. I think Jermell Charlo is about what he's been talking about for quite some time. In my opinion, of course. Time will tell. Of course it would. But I think that he'll beat the absolute stuffing out of Teixeira. To be honest with you, in my honest opinion. So I think Jermell Charlo will become undisputed. Honestly, I do. But the point is, where's Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford? Why is this not even a talking point? Why are we talking about Errol Spence Jr. versus Ugas? Why is it that he's quite keen to go fight Ugas, but he's not keen to fight Terence Crawford? Why is that? It doesn't make sense to me because he's the only one talking about wrong side of the street and this, that and the other with Crawford. Crawford wants to fight. When I spoke with Bob Arum on the podcast only a week or two ago, he was saying they want this Errol Spence Jr. fight, but it's Errol Spence Jr. don't want it. And I'm sure Fox Sports will look at Errol Spence Jr. and go, you know what, we've kind of had enough now because we're not making the kind of money that you want. You want to be paid X amount of money, but we're not getting the reward back because you're fighting people that people are not too interested in. Errol Spence Jr., his career is actually taking a backward step if you look at it. Yes, he's a unified champion, of course he is, and he's very, very good. He could beat Crawford and all this, of course he could. But how do you go from fighting Kell Brook and now fighting, when he fought Sean Porter, a guy who Kell Brook beat? That's a backward step. And then you go from Sean Porter to a Danny Garcia. Again, Sean Porter beat Danny Garcia. He's taking backward steps. That's what he's doing. Fox Sports probably see that, to be honest with you. Where does Deontay Wilder fit in all this? His excuses and everything has harmed his credibility. It's harmed his pulling power. Because of how he lost to Tyson Fury and the excuses throwing his own trainer under the bus, Tyson Fury cheated, the referee this and the Nevada State Athletic Commission that, all this kind of thing has hurt his credibility. Fox Sports recognise this. But there's a saving grace. He could, if he really wanted to, maybe fight the winner of Dillian Whyte, Alexander Povetkin. Will he do that? Probably not. Probably not. But if you don't want to, okay, it is what it is. There are other in-house fights to make that will do good numbers. Wilder versus Andy Ruiz Jr. Why are we not even talking about that fight? Both of these guys have had a bit of a layoff, and both of these guys coming off a loss. Surely they should just fight now. Why not? What's the problem? Why are we hearing about Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Chris Arreola? Why are we hearing about Deontay Wilder versus Charles Martin, who's already lost to Joshua and Adam Kownacki, who Robert Helenius beat Adam Kownacki? So why is Charles Martin even in the equation for that? Don't get me wrong, in-house fights, of course, both American, so it does have a bit of interest. How good is Wilder? Is he definitely on the slide now? Is he on his way out? All that kind of stuff. But again, we're hearing that potentially Wilder has priced himself out. Why are we not hearing Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Luis Ortiz? Why is that? Why did Luis Ortiz end up fighting that absolute diving trash bag in Alexander Flores last time out? Why is Ortiz fighting these kind of guys? If he's the boogeyman, why is he fighting these kind of guys? If he's really that good, why is he fighting these kind of guys? Why is he not fighting Andy Ruiz Jr.? Michael Hunter's a free agent. Michael Hunter could fight Luis Ortiz. Michael Hunter could fight Andy Ruiz Jr. Michael Hunter could fight Deontay Wilder. But where's the talk of any of these? There are no talks for this. What? Jamal Charlo, 160-pound WBC champion, middleweight. Well, where's the talks? Where's the effort from the PBC and Fox and Showtime and all these together? Where's the effort to really make offers towards Triple G, towards Demetrius Andrade? Honestly, I do think now that Jamal is ready to take these fights. I think that he would take these fights, to be honest with you. So maybe the problem isn't actually Jamal Charlo's end. Maybe the problem is Triple G. Maybe the problem is Demetrius Andrade. Again, why are them two not fighting each other? They're both DAZN fighters, so we're not letting Matchroom quite off the hook here in DAZN. Why are we not hearing Triple G versus Demetrius Andrade? Why are we hearing Triple G fight a Ryota Murata, for example? Why are we hearing that Demetrius Andrade could be fighting a mandatory, or he wants a Billy Joe Saunders fight or whatever? Why are we not hearing Triple G versus Andrade? Where is the problem for that one? Is it a case of DAZN just don't want to put it on? Does Triple G, is he the problem? Is it Andrade? Is he the problem? Where's the problem? Jamal Charlo needs a big fight. He needs a unification. Somewhere along the lines, he needs that unification. If Triple G and Andre do actually get their act together and fight each other, then I hope Al Haymon makes a contact with Bob Arum about getting Charlo versus Murata. Let's get some unifications. Let's end 2021 with an undisputed middleweight world champion. Who comes out on top? I have no idea. If I had to pick someone, probably Charlo at this point. But I could be wrong on that. Let's see the fights, let's find out. Anyway, the point is, if the PBC and Fox Sports are parting ways, I think we can see why. Because nothing seems to be happening. No fights that are that interesting on a big scale at all. None. But they could happen. But why aren't they happening? And I think that's probably the problem. So if Fox Sports do cut ties with the PBC, I think we see where the problem is. Other platforms, DAZN, ESPN, they're putting on big fights. PBC based, not so much. And that's unfortunate. We can even throw Gervonta Davis in there. Why is he not shouting and screaming and stamping around saying how he wants the Ryan Garcia fight, how he wants the Devin Haney fight, he wants Teofimo Lopez, he wants Vasyl Lomachenko? Why is that? Because for me, and I know I am in the minority, I think Gervonta Davis could beat all of these guys. But likewise, they all could beat Gervonta Davis, if we're being honest here too. Again, people will have various thoughts on that one, but it is what it is. Let's see Gervonta Davis in with one of these cats. Okay? Anyway, listen, that's my thoughts on this whole situation. You drop me yours, click a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video.